See everyone, good morning. We'll go back to Department 1, People versus Robert Durst. Mr. Durst is present with Mr. DeGuerin and Mr. Chesnoff. We have Mr. Lewin, Mr. Milius, and Mr. Bailey and Mr. Henderson and Mr. Miata present. Our jurors and alternates all have returned. The witness, Ms. Susan Giordano, has resumed the witness stand. Good morning. I'll remind you that you're under oath. And Mr. Lewin, you may continue with your examination of the witness.
Your Honor, did the court see Mr. Lewis's email this morning?
Yes, I did. And is that agreeable to you?
Yes.
So we are going to come in on, originally on Monday, there was a concern about starting, that we would not be able to start at 9, but the lawyers are on the, looks like they're going to have a stipulation as to that legal issue that was going to require a long hearing. They're going to reach agreement. I expect to approve their agreement, and that means we'll start right on time at 9 o'clock. The more time we get in, the sooner we finish. So that's why I try to encourage this. So strike on your calendars. Be sure that next Monday you come in at 9 o'clock. So thank you. And with that, let's be here now and resume the examination of this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, I want to go back to an area that we discussed yesterday. Do you remember I asked you about a call that took place on September 20th, 2017? This was 7 months after you testified at the motion, and I asked yesterday if you recalled asking Bob Durst for $30,000 for a second car for your son Tommy, and your response was that did not happen, correct?
Correct.
And then I also asked you if you discussed on that same call if Mr. Durst mentioned a concern he had that if he gave you money that it could be viewed as, and he used the word bribe, and you said that he did not use the word bribe. That never happened, correct?
I don't remember. I really don't.
Code SG118. Your Honor, while Mr. Miller's is bringing that up, was the court able to fix the heating issue or no?
Yes, I would claim complete responsibility for our gradual improvement. I don't know. Apparently they found the problem, and we're trying to, I understood it was better.
Maybe it's just me. Am I the only one that's still hot right now?
Yeah, no, it's definitely hotter than it was.
May I have permission to take my coat off, Your Honor?
No? Yes. Okay. You know, Erica, really, I rely on Erica to help me with decisions like that. So.
Wait, what, I didn't hear. What did she say?
She said it was okay.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
Overruling Mr. Balian's objection. All right. I know there was a technician in the hallway. I overheard him, but apparently it's much worse. It's emanating from that side of the building. So yesterday in the morning that was impossible, and by late afternoon that heat had moved in this direction, and it was getting worse and worse. I know we're trying to get some cross ventilation now to mitigate it, but obviously it's not entirely fixed. So, Mr. Lewin, you may.
I think they're trying.
Ready?
You know what I'm going to do?
You can go to the next subject.
Go to a different area.
Go to a different area.
Trying to get it out. Okay, I'm going to move to a different area.
Yes.
He's in trouble when he's asking me for technical help.
That's for sure.
We've definitely hit desperation if Mr. Balian is assisting with the technical issues. So,
All right, gentlemen, can you take your seats while you work on that? Okay, go ahead.
All right, ma'am. I was asking you yesterday about a conversation near the end of your testimony that you had with Mr. Durst after he fled Houston after viewing episode 5 of the Jinx. Do you remember where we were with that?
Yes.
And he called you from New Orleans. Do you recall testifying to that?
Yes,
Did he ask you to do something?
yes.
What exactly did he ask you to do?
He wanted me to send him luggage that he had in New York.
If you can, ma'am, can you please, to the best of your memory, describe exactly what he asked you to do?
He asked me to go to his apartment in New York and send him a suitcase and to throw some things in it, clothes and shoes, things that he would need.
You previously were interviewed on March 18, 2015.
Yes,
And I would assume at that time, when you were interviewed, was your memory about specifically what Mr. Durst had told you, and that would have been within a week of the instructions. Was it better then than it is now, your memory?
I remember.
Okay, do you recall saying during March 18, 2015, quote, I went to his place, he said, quote, I have winter clothes. I have another bag at my house now with the other one. I said, well, I'm not carrying both of them, so I have one bag actually sitting in my house. And he said it was just clothes that he needed to be, warmer. Is that what happened?
Yes, there were 2 pieces of luggage, and I sent one, and I said I would send the other if he needed it.
And he told you the purpose of his call was, he said, I need winter clothes. Is that correct?
I just remember extra clothes, something that might be warmer, I said he might need, and shoes, because you don't want to buy new shoes.
Well,
You want to
ma'am-
wear comfortable shoes that you've had.
Ma'am, let me just ask you though, if you said winter clothes twice, and you quoted him as saying, I have winter clothes, would that have been accurate?
Okay,
Yes?
yes,
And this is in March of March, correct? 2015, correct?
yes,
And he's not in North Dakota, he's in New Orleans, correct?
yes, but I thought he meant he was on his way to New York, so he would have wanted something warmer. Right?
Ma'am, didn't you testify yesterday that Mr. Durst had told you that, in essence, he was on the run because of what had happened in episode 5?
Objection, Your Honor, this is the testimony.
Overruled.
No, he never used the terms on the run. He just said, I'm coming to New York.
So he told you that things had gone bad for him, correct, during episode 5?
Yes, his words were something, yes, it wasn't going to be good or something like that. And he wanted to come home to New York.
Well, he said he had to leave, correct? He indicated he had to leave Houston.
No, not that he had to, it's not had. I didn't ask all those questions. He literally said, I just want to come home to New York.
So during the call, Mr. Durst in no way communicated to you that he was fleeing Houston. He was just telling you, I'm going to come visit you in New York?
Yes, I'm coming to New York. It was a brief conversation. I'm sure you've seen how long the conversation was, pretty quick. That was it.
Ma'am, and you're aware that Mr. Durst has since been interviewed and that he has said that he was fleeing Houston and that he was going to go to Cuba, correct?
I
Your Honor, I'm going to object to that as well. I don't think that
What's the basis?
Grounds.
don't,
Ground, succinctly.
fact's not in evidence, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll need an offer of proof.
I'm sorry, Your Honor?
We'll go sidebar. All right, the objection is well taken, but I'm going to allow the question.
And ma'am, I'm gonna go back for a moment because now we're up, and I'm gonna go back to what I was asking you before regarding the questions about the $30,000 second car and the use of the word bribe. That's gonna be SG 118-92017. Mr. Milius, the exhibit numbers.
Your Honor, may we mark it as 216 and 216A?
Yeah.
We gave you $50,000 about a year or so ago. I assume that's all gone? That's all gone, yeah. Yeah, okay, so how much should I tell them I want to send you? I want to get Tommy the second car, so maybe 30? I could get, but is that too much? No, I have lots of money in my accounts. I'm not going to be spending... This call is being recorded. I'm not going to be spending anywhere near any of it, hardly. I'm happy to bring up where their concern is that you are theoretically a witness to the other side, even though you're a hostile witness. The other side is going to say we're trying to bribe you. So as far as I'm concerned, we already broke. I gave you $350,000. So whatever it is, it's minutia.
Ma'am,
Yes,
that's your voice, correct?
yes,
So the first thing is, Mr. Durst mentioned that he gave you $50,000 a year ago. That is separate from the 300.
no,
So you're saying that's the same.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, and you said it's all gone. So, ma'am, I thought you said that you put the rest of the money, I think you said maybe $100,000 was to cover loan and tuitions for the kids. What happened to the other $200,000?
I had it written down actually, and I sent it. So it was the 100,000 with credit cards. I mean, then I had 40,000 put towards the other property. So I wrote everything down, and then it was Louisiana. I had put, I don't know, it was like, I don't know exactly if it was the 30,000, Tommy's apartment there. He was in Louisiana or LSU at the time. And he set him with an apartment. and-
Ma'am, did you buy a house in Mr. Durst's name with that money?
No, we paid the architect, we paid out, and then the deal fell through.
Right.
So it was a loss of about, I don't know, it was a loss of about 35,000 between the architect and the engineer and,
So you got $350,000 from Bob Ruffle. You spent about $35,000 on lost cost, and then the rest of it went to support your and your children's standard of living, correct?
yes, it was to pay up what was owed, yes. I don't.
So what kind of second car did Tommy need that was gonna cost $30,000?
It wasn't. The conversation prior was other things that were involved.
Well, ma'am, isn't it true, you hit Bob up on this call, you basically said, hey, how about 30?
Right, as a total for whatever, but it certainly wasn't a secondhand car, the 30,000.
Well, I would think it wouldn't be a secondhand car,
No,
maybe a
so-
secondhand Lamborghini, but
No.
not a secondhand car anyone else would drive.
No. And if you actually look, I mean, my newest car is a 2004, if you want to be technical.
Did you actually buy that one, or was that a gift from Mr. Durst?
No, I bought the
You bought that one.
2004.
So, ma'am, you also mentioned that there's no way that bribery came up during this call. You said that yesterday. Do you see Mr. Durst talking about that?
Yes, I do. I wasn't either paying attention. I don't know. I don't remember.
And, ma'am, that's not the only time that you and Mr. Durst have had conversations about the idea that if he called you as a witness, or if you testified as a witness, that the monies that you had been paid would make it look like he bribed you, correct?
Yes.
Let me ask, is it your position, ma'am, you said that you were an unbiased witness, correct?
Yes.
Do you think that the $350,000 that Bob has given you, do you think that in any way is a factor that it would be reasonable for the jury to weigh in assessing your credibility?
No.
Okay. Let me continue, ma'am. So, we were talking about a moment ago the issue of Mr. Durst telling you that he was fleeing. Do you recall that line of questioning?
I recall.
So, ma'am, you have seen the New Orleans interview. You have reviewed that interview that myself and investigators did with Bob Durst. It's about 2 hours and 47 minutes in New Orleans on March 15, 2015. You've seen that, correct?
No,
You've never viewed that at all?
nobody said anything to me, no.
Well, ma'am, you're aware that it was deeply covered in the national media, et cetera. You're saying you never saw it?
Objection, Your Honor, 352.
Sustained.
Ma'am, so is it your position that as you sit here today, you have no knowledge of Mr. Durst's statements regarding what he was doing and where he was going after he left Houston? Is that your position?
Yes, yes.
So, ma'am, let me ask you something. When Mr. Durst asked you to send down, quote, his winter clothes, did you say, hey, Bob, why don't you just buy some clothes there?
No,
Did it seem strange to you that a multimillionaire like Mr. Durst was going to have you go to his house, pick up suitcases, and send them down to him? Did that seem strange to you?
no,
And it's your position that at the time he told you this, that he was supposed to be coming to New York?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that? I was just thinking of the shoes, sorry.
Ma'am, didn't you say that Mr. Durst told you that he was supposed to be coming to New York to see you?
Yes,
If he was going to be coming to New York to see you, ma'am, why wouldn't he just get his winter clothes when he got there?
I didn't know if he was stopping anywhere along the way, if he was driving. Maybe he was stopping in, I don't know, another state that's close to the East Coast. I didn't question it.
You didn't question it.
And I figured if he needed anything, you could buy, but you don't want to buy new shoes because that's always uncomfortable. So I thought he would want shoes that were comfortable to wear, and I didn't ask him when he was actually going to be in New York. I didn't know. Could have been 3 days, could have been a week later. I didn't ask.
So, what directions, by the way, did he give you with respect to picking up these suitcases? What exactly did he tell you?
He told me that in the closet there were suitcases, and just
Closet where, ma'am?
Excuse me?
The closet where?
In his apartment in New York, in Harlem,
And how did you get into that apartment?
with a key.
How did you have a key?
I always had a key. If he forgot something and he needed something sent to him that was in New York, I would have access to the apartment.
Ma'am, isn't it true that he had sent you a key very recently so that you could aid and abet him in his fleeing from justice?
Objection, Your Honor, 352.
Sustained.
Actually,
Don't
no.
answer. Don't
Oh,
answer.
sorry.
You can ask it a different way.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When did he give you the key?
I was saying I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
Sure. When did he give you the key?
Had a key for as soon as he had the apartment. I had a key.
Okay, ma'am, was it a month before?
Oh, 2 years, 3 years. It was. I
Had-
don't know exactly how long, but it was over a year. Over 2 years probably.
I thought you said you hadn't spoken to Mr. Durst in 2 years before he ended up calling you from Texas or New Orleans. Is that correct or incorrect?
No, that's incorrect.
How frequently were you talking to Bob Durst during the airing of the Jinx?
I mean, we spoke at least every week. Whether it was an email or we physically spoke.
And I assume he was talking to you about the Jinx, correct?
Yes, not all the time. It was just wasn't like the top conversation, but yes, we've spoke about it.
Well, I know that one top conversation is you getting money from Mr. Durst. What other conversation would you have other than about this mini-series which is airing? What else were you talking about during the time the Jinx was airing on TV?
What everyone else speaks about. How are you? How do you feel? Talk about things that have happened in the past. My family, my father, how he's feeling. Just normal conversation.
So let's talk about specifically what he was saying about the Jinx. What did he tell you when the first episode of the Jinx aired?
He asked me if I watched it. Honestly, he never said anything negative. He just asked me if I watched it.
And had you watched it?
I did watch the first episode.
And ma'am, would you agree that historically, on a level of 1 to 100, with 1 being Bob Durst has no interest at all in articles or interviews about him, and 100 mean he's obsessed and wants every interview and every story about him, where would Bob Durst be?
I would say in the middle. I think it's mostly curiosity. What other people viewed it, I guess, but
And ma'am, isn't it true that nearly every time there's anything that appears in a paper or on TV that Mr. Durst calls you and is asking you to watch it, to find it, to send it to him?
most of the time he wants me to watch it.
So, but you're just calling that an average interest, you said in the middle.
Yes, yes.
So you go to pick up these suitcases. Do you ask him what's inside?
No.
Do you pack the suitcases?
Yes.
So what do you put inside the suitcases?
I literally didn't pack neatly. I kind of threw just a few items and a pair of shoes, a shirt and sweater, his shoes.
Did he tell you where these empty suitcases were?
Yes,
And where were these empty suitcases?
in his closet.
Okay, so you picked up, was a red and a green suitcase, both empty in the closet, is that right?
Yes,
And then you packed them, is that correct?
correct.
Which one did you send him?
Oh my goodness. Red?
You sent him the red one, okay. Let me put these up now.
I think so.
People's next in order.
217, Your Honor.
Okay, yes.
Ma'am, is this the suitcase that you picked up?
Yes, I
And,
think so.
and you packed that, and you said, what did you put inside?
Just like the shoes, I think a couple of shirts. It was really quick. My
Sure.
car was running outside, so it was really quick.
Marking 218. Ma'am, do you know what that is?
They're envelopes.
What's that?
They're envelopes?
Appear to be
Oh, I
envelopes.
have one behind me. Okay.
It's in front of you.
Yes,
This should be,
yes.
I guess.
Envelopes.
What do I need to do? You can look at that. That's-
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
I want you to assume, ma'am, that when that suitcase was opened, underneath the clothes and the shoes were those envelopes.
Objection, Your Honor.
What, grounds?
Yep.
What?
Overruled?
I was about to say something, Your Honor, but
Okay. Tell me again.
facts not in evidence, Your Honor.
Overruled?
Ma'am,
Yes.
I want you to assume for a moment that those envelopes contain roughly $115,000, that they were inside the suitcase when the FBI opened it.
Yes, that's what
Do
I
you-
was told.
Do you know how that got there?
I would assume it was in there. I didn't put it in there.
Well, ma'am, you just testified that you took 2 empty suitcases and you put clothes inside.
I did. I just threw everything in. Like I said, my car was running. Wish you had video. I was in there for probably 3 minutes, and I threw some stuff in, and I ran before I would get to it.
So, ma'am, let me show
If there
you.
were papers, honestly, in there, I didn't know. I even told the FBI agent that.
People's 218, 19, excuse me, ma'am. When you open the envelope,
Wow. Okay.
do you see that? Was that in the suitcase when you packed it?
Did not look through anything. You would not see a fingerprint. Nothing on there, because I didn't touch anything.
220.
We could fingerprint, DNA, there is nothing I touched.
It's a lot of cash, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So, ma'am, can you explain how roughly $115,000 worth of cash got into an empty suitcase that you yourself had testified you packed?
Like I said, if it was in there and there were papers in there already, I didn't go through any papers. I didn't touch. You could fingerprint, DNA, whatever you like. I did not touch those envelopes.
Ma'am, that's why I asked you first if they were empty twice.
I mean, I didn't. It was dark. I was in his apartment.
Don't argue.
Ma'am?
No,
So-
you can't. Don't
Ma'am,
argue.
you testified, ma'am, that the suitcases were empty, correct? You just testified to that 5 minutes ago, is that right?
Yes, I didn't look in the bottom. It was a tall suitcase. I literally was in the building. If there was a video for 3 minutes, I swear on my life. I took a few things. They weren't neatly packed. I threw them in there and I left. And if
Ma'am?
there were papers in there, I'm sorry I didn't look.
Ma'am, I just want to ask you,
I would have overnighted.
ma'am, you're saying that's what happened, correct?
Yes, that is what happened.
I want to ask you, if you were listening to that story yourself.
Objection, Your Honor,
If
352.
I can finish my question as the court has
Okay,
said.
I'll hear it, then I'll consider it for 352.
Ma'am,
Yes.
would you agree, ma'am, that even if your position is that that's what happened, that in listening to the story, it does not sound very reasonable?
Overruled.
No.
So to you, it sounds like a reasonable story that you took an empty suitcase that had nothing in it, that you packed it yourself, and that $115,000 turned up in that suitcase underneath the clothing, but you didn't know it was there. That sounds reasonable to you?
It's reasonable because it's what happened.
Okay, ma'am, and your position is that Mr. Durst didn't pack anything, you packed it all, you've previously testified, correct?
Exactly right. I put clothes. I didn't look at the bottom of the suitcase. And if there were papers in there, I would have thought they were papers. I didn't look through anything.
Ma'am, you saw the number of envelopes, correct?
Excuse me?
So let me show you again, ma'am.
Now I see envelopes like that. Look,
Ma'am,
okay.
you're telling me that you missed that in the suitcase?
If there was, like I said, if I thought there were papers in it, I certainly wasn't going to go through it. I don't remember because it was dark. I threw things in there, and that was it. I didn't go through anything. I didn't question him what was in it. I just sent it.
That's a fact that we've not heard before. You're now saying it was dark.
Oh, yeah.
So did you pack the stuff in the dark? You didn't turn on the
Well, it was very dim.
dim? Could you see what you were doing, or were you kind of just...
Objection, Your
Well,
Honor, 352 cumulative.
Overruled.
I just wanted to get out of the apartment, so I literally, for 3 minutes, and if there were papers in there that he didn't need, he could just throw them out. I didn't look. There could have been receipts for all I know. I didn't look through anything. I told you that. You could have done anything.
Okay,
And there's
ma'am.
not a trace of me in there.
So, ma'am, and according to instructions then, you then took this package over to can't find it here. To UPS, excuse me, and you sent it to Bob Durst in New Orleans, is that right?
Yes. Actually, I didn't actually pack it. I left it there for them to pack it. I left the suitcase on the counter and I left.
Well, when you say you left them to pack it,
Yeah,
Meaning you just gave them all the loose things inside and handed
I
it to them?
gave the man there the suitcase, I left it there. I said, do you box and do all of that? And he said, yes. I said, can you do that for me? And he said, yes, I'll pack it and box it and send it.
So
So I
it's your-
left it on the counter.
So it's your position, ma'am, that you gave the UPS guy
Yes.
envelopes that contained $115,000 and he just packed them up for you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Yeah.
State's facts. The witness did not testify. She said she left the
That's not an
suitcase.
objection, Your Honor. That's a speaking objection, which the court has said the court doesn't want.
Okay, maybe if Mr. Lewin could go back to the lectern and not be screaming in my ear, it might help me think better, Your Honor.
Mr. Lewin, you should use the lectern.
I'm sorry, Your Honor?
Please use the lectern.
Well, I'm coming over because I'm having different photos put up, so.
Okay, and then return to the lectern.
All right?
And you may ask your question.
That was, I did. It was overruled, I assume, Your Honor?
Yes, overruled.
The question was asked. Can it be read back, please?
It's your position that you gave the UPS guy envelopes that contained $115,000 and he just packed them up for you?
Yes.
Ma'am, are you aware that there are laws that govern sending money through the mail?
I didn't know there was, first of all, money in there. I didn't know what was in there except the clothes that I sent. So no, and I left it on a counter and walked out.
So you left a bunch of envelopes that you originally didn't know were there on the counter for the UPS guy to pack, and then it's your testimony that he packed these envelopes and the rest of the material and sent them to Mr. Durst. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
Let me ask you something. Again, ma'am, I know you're saying that happened. If you were listening to that story yourself, does that sound to you to be reasonable?
Objection, 352, Your Honor.
So the witness testified that she was unaware that the envelopes were in the suitcase. She gave the suitcase to the UPS man to put into a box.
Right.
Your question suggested that she handed the envelopes. So
No.
the idea is that the envelopes, whether or not she knew, are inside. You're suggesting that she did know, but the envelopes are not separately given to the UPS man. The envelopes are inside of the suitcase, according to her testimony, I believe. You can clarify that if you'd like.
Ma'am, that's why I asked you, when you gave the UPS guy the stuff, you gave him all the separate stuff, correct?
No.
Oh, you just gave him the suitcase?
I gave him a suitcase that I threw the clothes in, and then he said, bring it to UPS, and I didn't have a box or anything, so I gave it to the gentleman. I left it on the counter. He said he would have it out by the end of the day. I said, okay, thank you.
And
And I left.
I assume, ma'am, the UPS person would have asked you if you were sending any contraband, et cetera, inside the box, correct?
UPS, maybe, but I was sending clothes.
Did you give him a value at all? Did you discuss what was in it?
I honestly don't remember.
And ma'am, so you then had them send it to Mr. Durst, is that correct?
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
Well,
People's next in order.
one of his names that he uses. Just,
Oh, okay, so you actually didn't have him send it to Mr. Durst. You had him send it to an alias.
Sorry, well, I didn't hear the answer.
The answer was, I sent it to a name that he used.
oh,
No.
yes, one of the names he would use.
And this is 221. Thank you.
So, ma'am, so
Not that particular name, but
So Bob Durst calls you and says, I need my winter clothes, but I'm coming up to New York. I'm in New Orleans. Do you know if it was winter or snowing in New Orleans at the time or no?
no, I didn't know anything. No.
So he tells you I need my winter clothes, but he's also coming to New York. And then he says, send him the suitcases.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way, pick them up and then send it to a phony name. one of the names I used.
Well, not that particular name. I just never heard that name before, but I also didn't know he used to live there, so I don't know if he's with somebody else or he just wants to use a name. Just don't question it because it's Bob.
Right, well, ma'am, it's Bob, and Bob sends you a lot of money, and you're not gonna question anything he tells you, are you?
I don't think I would question anybody. It was a very brief conversation. Gave me an address and a name and asked me to do it, and I did it.
Do you know who Everett Ward is?
No.
Did you ask Mr. Durst, hey, why am I sending it to somebody named Everett Ward?
Nope. Many conversations, if any, and I didn't ask.
Ma'am, were you not aware at the time that Everett Ward was the name of the individual that is in testimony in this case that actually bought the bow saw from Farmers Marine at Chalmers back in 2001?
No, I didn't know. Sorry.
Were you aware that Mr. Durst was actually registered at the JW Marriott under that alias as well?
No, I didn't know.
So, all right, so you send this down there, and ma'am, it just so happens then that the money that you were not aware was there happened to be hidden under the clothes and the shoes. That was just coincidence?
Yes.
So you grab the clothes and tennis shoes. I just want to be clear. You're not disputing that the money was inside there, correct? Just want to make sure that you're not disputing that, are you?
No. I
Okay.
don't know.
So the money is inside, all those envelopes full of cash, $115,000 approximately. You don't notice them, but you previously testified that the suitcases were empty twice. And then you throw shoes and clothes on top of it. And it just so happens that those shoes and clothes happen to kind of cover up the money. That's just coincidence?
Yes.
Okay, so you mail it down to Bob Durst. I'm sorry, well, you mail it down to Everett Ward. Did you check with Mr. Durst? Did you ask him, by the way, if there were two suitcases, what did you put in the other one?
A little more clothes.
Is there any money in the other one?
I can look. Eric, FBI agent, Eric Perry, took it. So I really don't remember what was in that other one.
So afterwards, you end up turning over, eventually, the second suitcase to the FBI, is that right?
Yes, he was there that day.
And ma'am, do you remember exactly, as you sit here, do you remember specifically what you did and how you arranged the items in the suitcase?
No, I don't. It wasn't neat.
SG036, Your Honor.
222?
This is going to be from March 18th, 2015, page 47, line 24 to 28, 28 to page 48, lines 1 through 15.
Your Honor, 222, 222A.
Yes. And 222A, that's printed.
Grabbed the bag and the shoes, like on the top. Okay. And they look like just clothes. He told me this, just get them clothes. He said I have them packed. So he had one green bag and one red bag. He said, no, red bag. Okay. But I just left it at the UPS place. Okay.
You didn't go in, you didn't look at the clothes or anything like that? You
No.
packed it up and stuff, so you don't really know what's in it then, right?
Well, it was one on top of the shoes.
Okay. But you didn't get obviously you didn't look inside the shoes or anything like that? Okay.
No.
Ma'am,
Yes.
that's not what you just testified to, is it?
Yes, I threw the shoes, yes.
Ma'am?
The other bag, I think had clothes in it. I don't remember.
Ma'am, you
Yeah.
said that Bob Durst told you, quote, I have them packed.
Yes, and then, no, there was like one thing or something. It was empty. There was nothing really, socks I think maybe were in it. There was really nothing there. It was
Ma'am,
not like when you open it, you go, oh, there's clothes.
so when you told the FBI agent that Mr. Durst had already packed it, you agree that's not what you're testifying to today, correct?
The green one, I didn't pack the green one. So if the green one had the clothes I don't actually remember. I know I took warmer things because there was a sweater, and I threw the sweater, and I said, get shoes because they're comfortable. You don't want to buy new shoes that are uncomfortable.
So ma'am,
So,
you agree that on the clip I just played for you, you were very clear. You said at the time that you didn't look at the clothes.
I just literally didn't really see exactly what I packed. I threw a sweater, a shirt, and shoes. Actually, I didn't pack anything else.
And clearly, ma'am, you would agree, ma'am, you certainly looked inside the bag and packed it because you were able to explain what was inside of it, and if you had never looked inside, you wouldn't have known. You agree, correct?
Right, whether, like I said, I didn't know if it was papers or anything. I knew there were no clothes in there, but I don't look through anybody's things. I don't.
And in fact, you were even able to say that there were shoes on top, correct? You remember there were shoes on top in the bag.
Yeah, before I left it at UPS, yes, I know the shoes.
And ma'am, I just want to ask this just very clear.
Yep.
Is it your position under oath today
Mm-hmm.
that you had no idea that that money was inside the bag?
Right.
I couldn't hear that, ma'am.
Exactly. I didn't
Okay.
know there was.
Okay, you're continuing to speak, and if you're going to say something, say it loud enough so the jury and the reporter can hear it, all right? Otherwise, don't.
Sorry. Just thinking.
Do you remember being interviewed by investigator Joe Becerra? He came on March 15th to pick up the boxes, correct?
Yes.
And then, but he didn't interview that day, right? He just got consent and he picked up the boxes, is that right?
Yes.
Then he came back the next day and he interviewed you, is that right?
Yes.
So, did you tell Detective Becerra on March 16, 2015, that the last time you had had contact with Bob was after episode 5?
Yes. I don't remember, but.
All right. SG012.
Your Honor, may we mark that as 223 and 223A?
Yes.
When was your last contact with Bob? Speak either in person or?
I don't know, you called me after the episode, yesterday.
After 5?
John, can we get a date as to when this,
Repeat the date, please, of that.
March
16,
16, 2015. It's actually on the slide.
oh,
It says March 16th, that's right.
thank you, Your Honor.
Ma'am,
Yes.
that clip, ma'am, that
Yeah.
clip, you said that your last contact with Bob was after episode 5, and that was more than a week before he interviewed you. That's not what you testified to today, correct?
I don't remember the exact dates. I don't remember if he left before episode 5. Didn't watch it, so.
Well,
I
Ma'am,
have to, yeah.
when he called you to ask you to send him the suitcases,
Yes.
was he in New Orleans?
I believe he was there already.
Well, you testified previously, ma'am, that he told you he was in New Orleans, and that he told you to send the boxes to New Orleans, correct?
I didn't send any boxes.
Excuse me, thank you, the suitcases to New Orleans.
Yes.
Well, ma'am, so my question is that if you had a conversation with Bob Durst while he was in New Orleans, then that's long after episode 5 is over, correct?
Okay.
So you lied to Investigator Becerra, correct?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't know if he was in New Orleans or he was on his way there. I don't know. The conversation was a minute. Whether I spoke to him right after Becerra or I don't know all the episodes because I didn't see them. I don't know what had aired.
Okay. What date did you send the the packages?
I don't know the date.
Does this refresh your recollection?
That's what your exhibit is not.
It says March 12th. Does that sound about right?
And that's, we're about to show
Yes, it was-
221.
Yeah, yes, it was,
People's 221.
I know it was a couple of days before I actually got everything sent out and I spoke to him, but
So there's you, correct? And there's where you sent it, is that right?
yes,
And there's already been a stipulation that Bob Durst was arrested on March 14th. So you're sending this on March 12th. Do you agree?
okay, yes.
So ma'am, if you're saying, you're telling Detective Becerra when he asked you when your last contact with Bob Durst was, and you're talking about episode 5, how come you don't tell him that I just talked to Bob Durst and I just sent him a package?
Well, I spoke to him like quite a few days before then. It just took me a long time to get to Manhattan, and then I didn't go to the place right away. I was going to go to UPS. I was first going to pack it, and then I waited a couple of days, and then, so yeah, I spoke to Bob after that I know.
I'm going to get to that in a minute, but my question is, why didn't you tell Investigator Becerra that you sent Bob a suitcase and that you had spoken to him? Did you just forget?
No, because that was a week before I spoke to him.
So
I mean,
ma'am,
it just took me a little bit to get there. It wasn't around the corner.
ma'am, you actually spoke to Bob, you have said, the day that he was arrested, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
So ma'am, if you sent this on March 12th, if you spoke to Bob on March 14th, the day he was arrested, how come when Joe Becerra interviewed you only 2 days later, on the 16th, how come you're telling him that the last time you spoke or had contact with Bob Durst was after episode 5, which occurred, ma'am, on March 8th? Can you explain that?
No.
Ma'am, how
I
come?
don't even remember speaking to Bob the day he was arrested, so I don't remember that.
Ma'am, how come you didn't tell Investigator Becerra that you had sent Bob Durst a suitcase?
He didn't ask me if I sent him anything. I don't know.
So
I
you're,
didn't speak to Bob, though, for a week before that. I mean, we didn't speak.
so ma'am, it's your position that you were not trying to hide the fact that you had sent this suitcase full of money, because number one, you didn't know there was money in there, and number two, you weren't trying to hide it. Is that your testimony?
Yes. I didn't know there was, anyone was even really looking for him.
Ma'am, isn't it true that you didn't mention the suitcase at all until March 18th, 2 days after Investigator Becerra, when you were interviewed by Special Agent Eric Perry of the FBI? Is that true?
That's true.
And isn't it true, ma'am, that even then, you didn't mention it until Agent Perry told you the following, quote, "I can't stress enough that you need to be crystal clear with me right now about what you did and what you tried and what stuff you sent to Bob, because what I have in here isn't going to look very good for you, okay? So why don't you tell me about the last thing that you sent to Bob and when?" That's at page 42, line 21 to page 43, line 2. Do you recall that conversation? Do you need me to hand it to you to read?
No.
Okay? So that's what Investigator Perry told you, correct?
Correct.
And once he said that, you knew, uh-oh, the FBI is here, and they're basically telling me if I tell any more lies, I could be in trouble.
Objection, Your Honor, 352.
What, 352?
Any more lies, Your Honor?
I didn't
I'm sorry,
say
it's,
any.
Rhoda. That's Rhoda, so it's not specific.
Ma'am, is that true?
He asked me, I answered him. He asked, and I told him yes. And actually, Eric Perry said I should have looked through it because there could be a gun in there. And I said, well, I certainly hope there isn't because I didn't look through it.
Well, except you said you packed it completely and it was empty.
I said, right. I said, I'm sure there's not a gun in there. And he said, well, you didn't look through it.
Okay, ma'am, isn't it true that you responded to Agent Perry, quote, The last thing that I sent to Bob, oh my God, I sent him this, he wanted his clothes. That's at page 43, lines 3 through 4. It is immediately after the last portion I read. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Once again, did you reiterate to him that all that was inside the package was the clothes?
Yes.
Ma'am, let me ask you this. Were you aware, I'm asking you if you knew, were you aware at that time that if you had sent Bob Durst that kind of money, that potentially it could be a crime?
No.
So in your mind, you had no reason to deny anything because there was nothing wrong with sending $115,000 hidden beneath clothes and shoes in a suitcase to an alias of another individual. That was your position. You thought that was okay. No alarm bells went off.
No. I didn't know there was money, so why did I think I would do something wrong?
Okay. As you sit here today, ma'am, hearing this scenario, does it make you say, gosh, that does sound a little suspicious?
Objection, 352, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You can answer, ma'am.
Like I said, I didn't know if there was money in that. No, I wouldn't have sent it, and I certainly wouldn't have sent that kind of money. Or would I have sent it and left it on a counter?
Ma'am? So my question is, a moment ago you said there was nothing wrong with sending that kind of money, that you didn't know that it was...
I didn't know.
So then why would you say, had you known, you wouldn't have sent it?
That's a lot of money to send through, leave on a counter, or I could have just sent it a different way, in PayPal, or I don't know. I didn't think I would, like I said, I didn't know there was, first of all, I just didn't know.
So in hindsight, your takeaway is, I could have sent him the $115,000 through PayPal.
Like anything, right, if he needed money, I would have just sent it. I didn't ask, I didn't question anything.
Let me go on to my next topic, ma'am. How did you find out that Bob Durst had been arrested?
I don't remember.
Ma'am, on March 18, 2015, at page 54, line 27, to page 55, line 5, you had the following exchange with Agent Perry. When was the last time you had a conversation with him? You responded, Saturday. Agent Perry, this Saturday? Okay. You respond, Saturday. Agent Perry, so Saturday he was arrested. You respond, yeah. So you had a conversation with him the day he was arrested, correct? You need to answer out loud, ma'am.
Yes.
So when you said a moment ago you're not even sure that you spoke to him on the day that he was arrested, does that now refresh your recollection?
Yes, now that you told me.
And ma'am, you have previously said, when you were interviewed, that there was no way that Bob Durst would take off, correct?
Correct.
Do you now know that statement that you made, that there's no way that Bob would take off? Do you now know that statement to be inaccurate?
No.
So ma'am, I want you to assume for a moment the following. I want you to assume that Bob Durst has stated during his March 15, 2015 interview that he had with myself and investigators that he was fleeing from Houston and that he was planning on leaving the country and going to Cuba. Would that statement from Mr. Durst, would that affect your opinion that Bob Durst would never just take off? Would that affect your opinion?
Still no. I mean, he might have said that. I really thought, and I still think, that he was coming to New York to see me. What he decided to do after, okay, whatever he told you. But as far as I knew, and I believe him, that he was just going to come meet me in New York. And whatever he decided after that, I don't know.
Okay. When you found out that Bob Durst had been arrested, you actually yourself attempted to recall the package, correct?
Yes.
Ma'am, why would you, so Bob Durst is arrested, and you're going to recall a package that's just full of clothes. Why?
He's not there. So you just reverse it, come back.
Right. So the first thing you're thinking when your friend Bob Durst has been arrested is, you know what? I better head down to UPS, and I better get those packages of clothes recalled, correct?
No, I didn't head down anywhere. You just do it on the computer and you just say, return to sender.
Ma'am, isn't it true that you knew there was $115,000 in there, and you wanted to make sure that that money was not gotten by individuals who were not you or Bob Durst?
No, I did not know that kind of money is in there. Did not know.
Right, so you asked that it be recalled. Did the package come back to you?
No,
Because the FBI, you found out later, they got it, correct?
correct.
Did you ever visit, I want to go back to after Bob Durst was arrested. Did you visit him while he was in jail in New Orleans?
Yes,
Did you speak to him on the phone constantly while he was in jail in New Orleans?
in New Orleans?
Yes.
I'm sure we spoke. I don't really know how often.
Well, I want you to make an estimate. Think it was 1 time, 5 times, 20 times, 50 times. What would be your estimate?
I don't know, maybe once a week? Maybe, I don't.
You think that was it, only once a week? Would it surprise you if it was substantially more than once a week?
No, it wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know exactly.
Oh, well, let me ask you, was it fair to say that you and Mr. Durst were speaking very frequently while he was in custody in New Orleans?
Okay.
Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes,
And ma'am, did you visit Mr. Durst in New Orleans in on June 15, 2015?
yes,
Did you take your son Tommy with you?
yes.
Did you guys drive down Tommy's very expensive $30,000 second car?
No,
No. By the way, what car did Tommy get with the 30 grand?
we didn't get it.
You didn't get it.
No.
So why did you take your son Tommy down to visit Bob Durst?
Tommy was moving to Louisiana, and Tommy knows Bob.
Right, and Tommy's hit Bob up for money through you, correct?
Tommy's never asked me to ask Bob for anything.
Wait a minute. I thought that part of the reason you got money from Bob Durst had to
Yes,
do
but
with...
Tommy did not ask me, ever.
So
to
you
ask
just
him.
decided that you would hit up Bob for Tommy, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, so you visit Bob in Louisiana, is that correct? I want to ask you, during your conversations with him, either in person or on the phone, did you ever ask him about anything related to Susan Berman's case? In terms of his involvement, what he did?
no,
All right, I'm going to go to a different area. Would you agree that Bob Durst has expressed to you repeatedly that he is very concerned about Nick Chavin's testimony, and that goes all the way back to his March 2015 arrest?
he asked, no,
Did Bob Durst ever express concern to you that Nick might, quote, bury him with evidence in this case?
no,
Did Bob ever tell you that he was, quote, sick to death that Nick was going to say something to the prosecution that was very bad for him?
I don't recall.
Did you ever say the following to Nick Chavin,
Date, please.
referring to Bob? This is going to be Nick Chavin's interview, April 8, 2016. Page 6, lines 24 to 28 to page 7, lines 1 through 6.
It's Nick Chavin's?
It's Nick Chavin's interview saying what Susan Giordano allegedly said to him. So, ma'am,
Impeachment by collateral.
overall,
This one, buddy, else is-
ma'am, did you ever say to Nick Chavin the following? That Bob told you, one moment, that he's very worried, very, very worried, and that you yourself, that I'm sick to death thinking about it, that Bob said he's going to bury me. There's something bad he's going to say, something bad. Did you tell Nick Chabin that?
No.
So let me ask something, ma'am. Is this a no definitely, or is this a no like some of the other no's where you end up saying, well, I didn't remember? In other words, do you have a definitive memory? Can you sit here under oath and can you say, I absolutely remember that I never told Nick Chabin that? Can you say that?
Yes, because all I said was that he was worried about him because he never contacted him. He wasn't speaking to him.
So ma'am, so it's...
No.
So you're not saying then that you didn't talk to Nick Chabin, you didn't talk to, Bob Durst about Nick Chabin. You're simply saying that Bob Durst commented about Nick Chabin but didn't mention anything about being scared to death or worried about his testimony that Nick had something bad. Is that correct?
Correct.
And do you also deny saying to Nick Chabin, what do you think that means about Bob Durst? Do you also deny that as well?
Yes?
Ma'am, were you concerned, strike that, did Bob Durst express concern to you that he was worried very early on that Nick Chabin was talking to authorities?
No.
Has Bob Durst ever expressed concern to you that he was worried that Nick Chabin was talking to the authorities?
No.
And I want to be clear, ma'am, are you saying absolutely definitively Nick Chabin, Bob Durst did not tell me that, or are you saying, you know what, I don't remember, Bob might have told me that, but I don't remember? I just want to be clear that we establish which is it. Are you saying I don't remember it, but it could have happened, or are you saying it absolutely did not happen?
I don't remember. Nick just kept trying to call me all the time. And Bob wanted to know why Nick was constantly calling.
I want to ask you.
We do need a break.
Sure, this is a good time.
All right, then, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back at 10:35. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. Don't discuss your testimony with any other witness during the break. Our jurors have left the courtroom. There was an objection about collateral impeachment. If this witness said something to Nick Chabin, I presume that the people are prepared to call Nick Chabin to prove the statement if she denies it. She must be confronted with the statement, so it's most appropriate for her to be confronted now by that, so she need not be on call.
Most of this, I think, Your Honor, some of this, Mr. Chabin actually already testified to.
That's fine. I overruled the objection. I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Good job.